All right, how to write a program the right way. And I want to underscore the sentence the right way, and that's because so many people do not have a methodical approach they can follow when it comes to program writing, and that usually results in inefficient code or inefficient programs, and it takes a lot of time, and it usually end up with a lot of syntax errors and any other type of errors. So when it comes to program writing, we always have to be very organized and strategic. And we need to have an action plan we can actually go through to develop a program the right way. All right. So this multi-step process here basically lay down the process we need to go through. Okay, so the first step is to clearly define the goal of the program. Okay, so you need to develop an unvague, all right, idea of the goal or the eventual outcome or output of your program. What do you wish to end up with? All right. Second, write the steps in your own language. So grab a pen and paper and start writing down the steps or the tasks that you need to go through in order to achieve the desired outcome. Okay? And in step three, you will start translating the steps that you have written in your own language into the programming language that you are using. Of course, using the resources that we have been introduced before, like for example the variables or the placeholders, the different operators, the data structures like the lists, dictionaries, sets and tuples, the different flow control statements like the loops, conditionals, etc. And last, the functions. All right. So it's up to you to pick the appropriate tools, programming tools to work with and develop your program. So always make sure to go through these steps when you try to develop any program, especially if the program is complex and consists of so many variables and tools. All right. Now let's take a couple of examples in order to illustrate the multi-step process we've talked about. So for example, here we have an example that asks us to write a program that swaps the values of the variables x and y. All right. So we have two variables, and the goal of this program again is to swap the values of the variables, right? Now you might think this program is very easy. We just put x inside y and y inside x, right? But let's assume that we said, for example, in our program, x is equal to y. Then in this case, the value of x will be updated to 8. So x will be 8 and y will be 8, and therefore we have lost the value of x. In that case, we need to think of a different approach in order to avoid using the value of the first variable, and that's basically by introducing an intermediary variable to work with, right? So let's start. As we said, the goal is to swap the values of the variables. That's step one. Step two is to write the steps we need to go through. In this case, the first step will be to create a temp variable, right? Two, we want to put the value of x inside temp. So we set temp, right? Let's name it temp. Set it equal to x. Now we can change the value of x to y, right? We set x to y, right? Now, as a fourth step, we set y to temp. Just like this, right? We have x here, and y here. There are 3, 8. We have an intermediary variable. We put this one here, and then we put this one here, right? And then we put this one here. And by that, we have done the swapping we were hoping for, right? So step 2 is done. Now step 3 is to translate the steps here into an actual code using Python in this example, right? So we say, we first declare the variables saying x is equal to 3, right? Y is equal to 8. And then we define a variable called temp, right? And we set it to x, okay? Now we say x is equal to y and y is equal to temp. And the values have been swapped. Now we can print out both of x and y, and what we will end up with will be 8 for x and 3 for y. All right. So this is a very simple example, but it basically again uh, illustrates the steps we have talked about in the previous slide. Okay. Now let's take another example here. Write a function that finds the minimum of the 3 numbers passed as inputs or parameters. Okay, so what the goal of this program is to write a function that finds the minimum of 3 numbers. That's our goal, right? Second step is to define the steps we need to go through. So step 1, create a function, right, with 3 inputs, right? Second step would be to initially maybe set the minimum to the first input of the inputs passed, right? So let's assume we had A, B, and C. We create a variable called, for example, min, and we set it equal to A. So A is the current minimum, all right? Now, in step 3, right, we would make a simple condition to check if uh, if B is less than A, right, then update min to B, right? As a last step, we create another if saying if C is less than min, then update min to C. And I'm sorry here, I made a mistake. If B is less than min, then we update the min to B. And finally, if C is less than min, then we update min to C. As a fourth step, we simply return the minimum value. All right. So let's write the code for this one here. Let's let's go to the third step and write the code for this one. So we say def, let's name our function min, right? And takes 3 parameters, A, B, and C. We write a colon here to start defining the body of our function. We leave some white space here, right? To indicate that the statements we are about to write all belong to this function, right? So initially we would say min, a new variable, is equal to A, right? Next we say if B is less than min, all right? Put a colon here and then we leave some white space here and say set min to B. If the condition was false, simply leave the minimum as the current value, which is A, right? Now we create another condition saying if C is less than min, right? Put a colon, we leave a white space here and say min is equal to C. After we are done, we go here and say return, sorry, we go here, right? Because we need to leave a space. Return min, and we are done. Okay, now when we call the function anywhere, saying for example min 3, 5, and 1, all right, what will happen is that the min variable will initially be 3. The first condition will check if 5 is less than 3, then we will update the min. Is 5 less than 3? No. So we'll go to the next condition and check for 1. Is 1 less than 3? Yes, so min will be updated to 1, and then we will return 1 as the returned value by this function, which is 1. And like this, we are done. Okay? Again, define the goal of your program. Have a very clear idea of the eventual outcome you wish for. Second, write the steps in your own language. This is called pseudocoding or pseudocode language, right? And then step 3, translate the steps you have written in your language into the programming language of your choice using the different tools like the variables, the data structures, the functions, etc., etc. Okay, so the takeaway here is to always be organized and be strategic when it comes to program writing in order to avoid wasting a lot of time and to avoid having so many errors when you execute the program. All right. In the next tutorial, we will practice creating some programs using Python, okay? And we will see how the process goes. For now, thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next tutorial.